RMC burst on the scene 11 years ago, and we're all better off for it. They were offering a glossy, smooth ride experience, full of ejector airtime and inversions. For the most part, these coasters have come at the expense of an old wooden coaster. Aging, rough, unpopular, or all of the above. Parks opted to let RMC turn the ride into a hybrid rather than tear it down. Today, let's look at all the coasters behind RMC and see which one is the tallest, fastest, longest, best paced, and which one had the best prime ride time. These are all the wooden coasters that got RMC, by the numbers. First, thanks to Bilderkin for this video idea. If you're new to this series, prime ride time starts when the first car starts picking up speed off the lift hill, and it ends when it hits the final brakes. Mid-course brake runs are left into the prime ride time, but if it slows down too much, it will hurt the pacing. With the help of Google Earth and their timeline feature, and the Pythagorean theorem, I was able to take out the lift, station, and brakes from the overall length, so the number on your screen will not match what you see on RCDB. Before we start, if you can drop this video a like, I'd appreciate it. It really helps the channel. In 13th place with 50 seconds is Twisted Twins at Kentucky Kingdom, built by CCI, operated from 1998 to 2007. This was a dueling wooden coaster with identical stats, built not to race, but to duel. The trains don't run alongside each other, but they cross each other at several points. This opened as Twisted Sisters, with one ride named Stella and the other Lola, but they were legally threatened by the rock band Twisted Sister and they changed the name. This was definitely one of the smaller RMC conversions, only 80 feet tall and not quite 2,500 feet long, both second to last, but its listed speed at 55 miles per hour is up at 6. With that speed and a short length, it's among the best pace on the list, up at 3rd place and covering almost 49 feet per second. This closed down 2 years before the park shut down, and when Ed Hart took the park over and reopened it in 2014, he worked with RMC to remove one of the tracks and convert the other to Storm Chaser for the 2016 season. In 12th place with 51 seconds is Hurler at King's Dominion, built by International Coasters, operated from 1994 to 2015. Hurler at King's Dominion was one of 2 installed that year, the other being at Carowinds, and that one's still operating. International Coasters only built these 2 coasters, and they leave a lot to be desired. At 83 feet, it's 3rd to last in height. It's only about 22 feet longer than Twisted Twins, so that's also 3rd to last. It's tied for 10th with a 50 mile per hour top speed, but just like Twisted Twins, it has solid pacing, covering about 48.5 feet per second. It's up at 5th. In the second half of the ride, it stays low to the ground. Some of these others had high, slow turnarounds. This does everything low and fast, so the pacing number makes sense. It's a ride full of shallow hills and turns. It closed down in 2015 and sat there for a year before RMC got their hands on it. And 3 years later, it reopened as the amazing Twisted Timbers, making lemonade out of a big lemon. In 11th place with 54 seconds is Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa, built by GCI, operated from 1999 to 2015. If you saw my last By the Numbers video, Gwazi was on that one, but it was closer to the middle. This list is full of major woodies, so this is down near the bottom. Like Twisted Twins, this had dueling tracks that had flybys and rode alongside each other. It was just an average-sized GCI, having a 91.8 foot drop, which is 9th, tops out at 51 miles per hour, which is 8th, and over 2,800 feet of track, which is 7th. All this seems pretty average, but then you look at the pacing and it's up at 1st place. More than 3 feet per second clear the rest of the field. In its own park, this was only 5th in pacing, so it shows you how these big wooden coasters aren't exactly tearing it up. And that's a good thing, given that most of them got rough at the end. Gwazi's pacing benefits from a second half very low to the ground, and even though it rises up at the beginning, it still seems to carry a good amount of speed with it. This sat idle for 3 years until 2018, when the park confirmed they had plans to convert it. They removed one of the 2 tracks, just about double the size of the lift hill, and after 2 years of delays, Iron Gwazi opened in 2022. In 10th place with 56 seconds is Roar at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, built by GCI, operated from 1999 to 2015. This was my first GCI and I thought it was pretty good, but I never got to ride it before it closed. If the roar at Six Flags America is any indication, it may not have been pleasant. This was another early GCI, operating the same exact years as Gwazi, and it was a few feet shorter in height, ranking 10th, half a mile an hour slower, ranking 9th, about 300 feet shorter in length, good for 10th, and it's down at 9th in pacing, covering 45 feet per second, about 7.5 feet per second slower than Gwazi. This seems to have been one of the more popular coasters to get RMC'd. given it wasn't very old and one of the better rides in the park. But Six Flags opted to get Discovery Kingdom something new for the 2016 season, and now we have the very unique hybrid, Joker. In 9th place, with 57 seconds, is Robin Hood at Wallaby Holland, built by Vekoma, operated from 2000 to 2018. It's unusual to see a wooden coaster from Vekoma. This was only one of 3, and this had a very unusual U-shaped layout. It was only 105 feet tall, that's tied for 7th place. The out and back layout covered just over 2,700 feet of track, that's 8th. It's only listed at 49.7 miles per hour, so that's second to last. And despite the lack of speed and 3 high turns, it has surprisingly good pacing, all the way up at 6. This shut down after the 2018 season, and RMC made quick work of it. Untamed was ready for the summer of 2019. In 8th place with 63 seconds is Medusa at Six Flags Mexico, built by CCI, operated from 2000 to 2013. This had a very quick hook, lasting only 14 seasons, and this was a pretty legit Woody. It was the same height as Robin Hood at 105 feet, tied for 7th. Tied for 6th with Twisted Twins at 55 miles per hour, and it was about 150 feet behind Robin Hood in length. So, it's shorter than Robin Hood, but has 6 more seconds of ride time. You know that pacing is bad, and it's third to last at 40.8 feet per second. A lot of these rides stay low to the ground, especially in the second half. But Medusa was built for big climbs, slow turns, and big drops. By the end, it's crawling into the brakes. Even after 14 seasons, it sounded like it was extremely rough. So instead of pouring money into maintenance, Six Flags went for the Iron Horse treatment for the 2014 season, and they debuted Medusa Steel Coaster, one of the most well-received RMC hybrids out there. In 7th place with 65 seconds is Cyclone at Six Flags New England, designed by William Cobb, operated from 1983 to 2014. This stands 112 feet tall, and that's good for 6, but this first drop is actually split into 2. It's almost a double down first drop, separated by a 180-degree turn. In 2001, they even shaved about 20 feet off the first drop. It sounds like that was because it went from Morgan trains to PTC trains. I think because of this break between the 2 sections of the drop, it hurts the speed, and this is dead last at 45 miles per hour. It's a pretty long ride, winding around itself. Nearly 3,000 feet of track, which is 6, and the pacing is halfway decent, near the middle in 8th. After that split drop, it would rise up over the lift hill, and it slowed down a lot before it could twist back around and dive back down towards the station. Given its age and its roughness, it was an easy contender for the RMC treatment, and after closing midsummer 2014, Wicked Cyclone was ready for action in May of 2015. In 6th place with 72 seconds is Georgia Cyclone at Six Flags Over Georgia, built by the DIN Corporation, operated from 1990 to 2017. This is our first DIN coaster, but it won't be our last. This was built as a mirror image of the Coney Island Cyclone. That was a popular thing for Six Flags parks to do in the 90s. With a 78.5 foot drop, this was the shortest of the bunch, but its max speed of 50 miles per hour was tied for 10th alongside Hurler. This also covered the least amount of track at 2,338 feet, and it has by far the worst pacing at 32.5 feet per second. With not much height and speed, this coaster also had a big turnaround and big hills. I never rode this, but I've ridden the original Cyclone and the DIN replica at Magic Mountain, and it runs pretty slow over those hills to make sure you get no airtime. This is the only Cyclone replica that got RMC'd, and because of its size, they weren't able to give it much track. This gave its last rides at the end of the summer in 2017, and by 2018, Twisted Cyclone was open to the public, with 2 furious laps around the course. In 5th place with 85 seconds is Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain, built by International Amusement Devices, operated from 1978 to 2014. Colossus opened as the world's largest coaster, and it became an icon for Magic Mountain and in pop culture. This had 2 tracks, running side by side the whole time, and they had drops at 115 feet, ranking 5th. Also 5th in length at over 3,300 feet, tied for 4th in speed at 62 miles per hour. And if you know Colossus, you know this was not a breakneck, out-of-control coaster. It had big drops and long, drawn-out turns. Those turns never seemed to end, so this is second to last in pacing, about 7 feet per second ahead of Georgia Cyclone. Over time, Colossus lost popularity. The park would only run one side, and there was never much of a line. The park saw a way to revive their classic by turning it over to RMC after giving it a proper send-off in 2014, and RMC would make its first and only Mobius Loop coaster. If timed right, the new Twisted Colossus would duel itself, one on the blue track, one on the green track, and riders got to experience both over 60 seconds of ride time. Not quite the 85 seconds the original provided, but that is definitely quality ride time. In 4th place with 86 seconds is Texas Giant at Six Flags Over Texas, built by the DIN Corporation, operated from 1990 to 2009. Back in the early 90s, there was an arms race when it came to wooden coasters, and the top of this list is dominated by the coasters involved in that. Texas Giant claimed that record with a 137-foot drop, good for second, maxing out at 62 miles per hour, tied for fourth. It's third in length at over 4,200 feet, and even with some high turns and a very harsh mid-course break, Texas Giant is number 2 in pacing at 49.3 feet per second. After 20 seasons, this record-breaking coaster was falling out of date and out of favor, so Six Flags took a chance on RMC on their very first project, and needless to say, it paid off big time. New Texas Giant was a smash hit when it opened in 2011, and this led to the RMC revolution. In third place with 94 seconds is White Cyclone at Nagashima Spaland, built by Intamin, operated from 1994 to 2018. This is the most visually impressive ride in the list, just an enormous structure, and like Intamin loves to do, it has a high drawn-out helix. Actually, 2 of them, and this does not like to stay low to the ground. You'd think that would hurt the pacing, but not really. It's up in 4th place. Its height and speed help a lot, a 129-foot drop and a 63.4 mile-an-hour top speed, both ranking 3rd, and it uses that to power the ride through nearly 4,600 feet of track. That's number 1 on this list. After 24 seasons, this was shut down for RMC's first project in Japan. They even added about 40 feet extra to the height, and 14 months after its closure, this reopened as Hakuge. In second place with 97 seconds is Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, built by RCCA, operated from 1992 to 2012. RCCA is notorious for their bad coasters, and this one also had a pretty bad reputation. But despite that, this was one giant ride. Built right in the edge of the quarry wall, it stood almost 180 feet tall. That would be number 1 on the list, but its drop was only 124 feet, so it takes 4th place. That drop bottomed out with a lot of room to spare right next to the wall. It is tied for first in speed, hitting 65 miles per hour, and it covered a lot of track diving on and off the wall, and ending with a section through the wall. All in all, it covered over 4,200 feet of track, about 23 feet behind Texas Giant, ranking 4th. But the most notorious part of the ride has to be that helix on the quarry wall. That horribly slow, seemingly endless section that couldn't have been pleasant. No surprise, it's down at 10th in pacing. The year after New Texas Giant opened, Six Flags saw the chance to give Rattler the same overhaul, and they took it. It was closed for not even 10 months before Iron Rattler made its debut in 2013. This would be a much shorter ride, but would take better advantage of its height, sporting a 171-foot drop, 47 feet more than the original. In first place with 98 seconds is Mean Streak at Cedar Point, built by the Din Corporation, operated from 1991 to 2016. Anyone who has ridden Mean Streak will tell you, this thing just never ended. Those who worked on Mean Streak said they felt like it would never be finished. That's how long it was. It's not as bad as White Cyclone, but it's close. It's second in length at 4,476 feet, just over 100 feet behind White Cyclone, but it's second to none in height and speed. Its 155-foot drop clears Texas Giant by 18 feet, and it's tied with Rattler at 65 miles per hour. This just keeps dropping and rising, winding around its course, playing high off the ground. And that's why, despite all that speed, it's right in the middle in pacing at 45.7 feet per second, right between Robin Hood and Cyclone at New England. Mean Streak started to gain a bad reputation over the years, and with RMC being prominent in the Six Flags chain, everyone had dreams of what a Cedar Point RMC partnership would look like with this massive wooden coaster. In 2016, our prayers were answered. Mean Streak closed at the end of the summer. RMC started their ambitious project that included adding 44 feet to the height, 300 more feet of track, and by opening day 2018, we were introduced to Steel Vengeance, possibly the best coaster in the world. That's it for the wooden coasters that got RMC by the numbers. Let me know if anything here surprised you or confirmed something you already knew. I figured Colossus would have bad pacing, and that was second to last, but I was surprised how good Robin Hood's pacing was. Same with Texas Giant. And, of course, Gwazi topping the list was something I did not expect. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please consider giving me a sub. I have a playlist with other videos in this format. Also, check out my links below for my Discord server, and my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you want some good off-season baseball content. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.